Hello everyone, it's me Bryce from Douche Gaming, and welcome to my top 10 personal games of 2017. Another year has passed, come and gone, and I'm ready to talk about my personal interests again, like a selfish motherfucker. And so, just to get this fucking going, at number 10, Hearts of Iron 4. What else can I say other than that Paradox makes awesome games. Every time I've played a game of theirs, they do great, and it's no different with Hearts of Iron. It's an amazing RTS massive overview strategy game, all about World War II. You build fucking massive armies, and there's a lot of clashing of bullshit. A lot of border gore and a lot of It's not like Warhammer where you get to see like in-depth views of battles and stuff. But it's like imagine Risk if it had more detail with like research development with like warfare technology, so like artillery, tanks, and other pieces of technology like radio and training types, for your military. And you can play. One of the awesome things about Hearts of Iron is that being a World War II simulator, it doesn't just focus on the major players of World War II. You can play almost any country that existed at the time, and they're all practically available for playing as. The only unfortunate side is that most of the non-major countries that you play as don't have unique perk trees to themselves. A few of them do, most of them don't. But it's all still really fun, just the same. You can play as Luxembourg, like one of the smallest countries in the world, and attempt to invade all of Europe, and it's amazing. It's really fun. And yeah, just all that said, I've played a lot of Hearts of Iron ever since I got it. I think late last year, and I've put well over 100 hours into it because it's ridiculous. Because not to mention, the modding community for Hearts of Iron 4 is absolutely spectacular. And it's really, just all the things they've done. There's somebody who's made a Game of Thrones mod where the entire world is changed to the shape of a Game of Thrones. There's some other really stupid mods, like the Danny DeVito Nation. That's a thing. And you can dominate the world as dictator Danny DeVito. It's pretty great. And there's other mods that are like alternate history, like what if during the Napoleonic Wars, what if Napoleon had succeeded with his European domination, what if the Napoleonic Empire still had heavy influence throughout the world, into like deep into the 1930s and 40s. So it's a really interesting take on historical shit and so on and so forth. So Hearts of Iron 4 at number 10, great game, fantastic. And on the same vein as major time strategy games, at number 9 is Endless Legend, which is made by the same company I think that made Endless Space. I think so. But what's awesome about Endless Legend is that it's what I've been looking for in a 4K strategy game recently, because I like Civ. I like Civ 5 a lot. I haven't played Civ 6 yet, but I like Civ 5 a lot. I play, a decent bit of it. But not too long ago, I was getting a bit tired of it, so I needed something new. Something that wasn't Hearts of Iron, something that wasn't Civ. Something that was kind of like a combination. And Endless Legend provided that sort of need to play a really nice turn-based strategy game by providing this mix of RTS, controlling units during a specific battle. So it had that element, kind of like Warhammer a bit, but a little bit, not quite to scale. But it had elements of, controlling your civs and stuff, like in a game of Civilization. So in that aspect, it was a good, decent mix of a few things into this nice sort of fantasy sci-fi setting, rather than being historically set. And each, just like in Civ or in other top-down strategy games, each Civ has their own unique set of units and abilities. My personal favorite Civ in Endless Legend is probably gonna be the fucking the basic like elvish. I don't remember what they're called, but they're like these elven people. They're probably my favorite because they're easy to play. They're not too difficult, and they're pretty good all around. Not to mention some of the late game units for warfare and stuff are really good with them. And you can just fucking dominate people. They're like really nature focused, and you can make like these giant tree golems towards the end and just fuck people up. It's great. So yeah, Endless Legend at number 9, pretty good. Going on to number 8, This Is the Police. Fucking loved it. I saw one of my favorite comedians and YouTubers, Sips, play through this. Not through the whole thing, but a little bit. And I immediately thought, man, I would love to play this game. So I went to get it for my Xbox One, played it, fucking loved it. It's another kind of strategy game, a little bit different from the previous two, in the sense that that you're this police commissioner in the city called I forget the name of the city, so we're gonna call it Sunnydale, just for reference. And as this city chief, you have to basically control your police department into getting rid of crime in Sunnydale by telling your officers to do certain jobs, and then as time goes on, you can promote the officers. Certain officers will end up dying if you don't assign them the right jobs and shit. And it's all about resource management basically. And not only that, but there's a huge story element with This Is the Police, because you're not just a faceless police commissioner. You play as through the eyes of police commissioner or police chief Jack or something. Was it Jack Dave? No, I don't remember. But his name's Jack Boyd. That's his name. And through the entire game, not only do you have to deal with controlling and organizing the police department through murder investigations and other shit, but you also have to basically focus on also balancing out trying to be a good police officer, abiding by the law, and also dealing with the mafia, the heavy mafia presence that is within the city. And it's all really morally questioning, and it's a very dark game, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with it. But it's a really good story, really good game, very addicting to get into. So yeah, This Is the Police at number 8. This Is the Police, put your fucking hands up. And at number 7, Salt and Sanctuary. Of course, earlier this year, I finished Dark Souls 3, and it was great. And since then, I haven't had the ability or the money, more like it, to go buy the DLCs that have come out for recently. So needing the fix that I needed to, I needed that Souls-like fix to be able to play a game that was, time-based attacks and combat, and really have that same sort of feel to it with memorable bosses and, similar game mechanics. Oh, sorry. And so, Salt and Sanctuary was that sort of relief that I needed, because, in a sense, it is definitely a Souls-like. It follows similar game mechanics with time-based combat, so on and so forth. But the primary difference is the art style and how it's how it runs, because unlike Dark Souls, Salt and Sanctuary is a 2D platformer kind of situation. Of course, Dark Souls has no platforming at all, pretty much. So that's where it really makes a difference between Dark Souls and Salt and Sanctuary. And but I think it's a good twist for Salt and Sanctuary. For Salt and Sanctuary, it sort of gives it its own unique sort of perspective on things, and it's nice too. It doesn't work all the time, because sometimes the way it functions with bosses, if you're trying to like dodge roll around bosses, it sometimes doesn't always work so well physically, because some bosses are so big that the physics kick in, and as you're trying to roll through, you get extremely like bogged down by their fucking presence on the screen. I don't know how else to explain it, but for the most part, it works out well, and it was a great sort of adventure to go through. Played through it twice, really fun. Really massive perk tree you can go through in that game. It's really fun to go through and just try and make your character and all that, because you can really make your character quite unique. I mean, you can even play as a fucking chef the whole time, and you can just go through the whole game using a frying pan and upgrading that the whole time. And it's amazing. So yeah, Salt and Sanctuary, really fun, really nice experience. So number 6, Hotline Miami. Hotline Miami. I'm gonna say this right now. I was immediately drawn in by how psychedelic the game is. It's set, I think, if I remember correctly, in either the 70s or the 60s. Pretty sure it's the 70s. You play as a sort of hitman. The story is extremely vague. It kind of feels like Pulp Fiction a little bit. It's a top-down shooter, 2D, and basically the whole game is you as a hitman. You're going through these buildings. You're being called in for hits and stuff to go through and just slaughter like shit tons of gang members and whoever the fuck else you're killing. There's not much context as to who you're killing, really. All you know is that you're being told to kill people, and you do it. But the whole thing is an extremely psychedelic experience. Where it goes from the colors to the soundtrack, it's all very trippy, and I'm immediately drawn to stuff like that. Because while I don't do drugs, and I never want to do drugs, I love very hallucinogenic based visuals on things. I think they're very fascinating to look at, and when you mix in a psychedelic soundtrack like Hotline Miami does, it's like a perfect mix for me. Because I'm a huge fan of YouTube poops, and I really like YouTube poops that take editing to that really psychedelic level. So for me, to put that into a video game rather than just something to watch, it's really hypnotic and just addicting for me. So yeah, who needs drugs? You got fucking Hotline Miami and other shit similar to that. I mean, that's how I go anyway. So that's number 6, Hotline Miami. It's a great game, really fucking fun, really damn violent too. Lots of violence, like fucking, even though it's pixelated, 2D, fucking blood everywhere. You bash people's heads in with baseball bats and shit. Once again, you're a hitman. You don't even know why you're killing these people most of the time. You're just going in with a baseball bat, just like, oh, hey, what's up? They're like, who the fuck are you? And it's like, I don't know. I'm just here to kill you. And so on and so forth. One thing leads to another, and you're surrounded by a pool of blood and tons of dead bodies. It's fantastic. Absolutely lovely. So, number 5 is Fallout 4. Fallout 4, what else is there to be said that other than it's the sequel to Fallout 3? And Fallout 3 is amazing, so when I got the chance to play it, I was really excited, and I was not disappointed. I thought it was really good. I think there was times where dialogue may have lacked, it may have been simplified to a point to where it wasn't as well written, but for the most part, the game is extremely well executed. I thought, it's the same kind of Bethesda mechanic as always. It's got its glitchy physics and other shit that happens, but that always makes the Bethesda game experiences much more enjoyable, I think, because a lot of funny moments and memorable things happen from that. And not to mention that I really like the world this time. I think the fact that it includes a more what am I trying to say? I don't really know how to put it. I don't know. Every time Bethesda makes an RPG, I fall in love with it in some way or another. They always manage to entertain me for long periods of time with whatever they do, whether it comes to the main story or the side quests. It's always enjoyable to sit down and just spend a lot of time faffing about with people's quests. The only time that isn't true, I think, for Fallout 4 is when it comes to the character of Preston Garvey, because he's a piece of shit, and I hate having to do fucking settlement missions for that fucking bastard. That's pretty much the only thing I find tedious in Fallout 4 is just having to do the Minuteman bullshit. That quest line I don't like. I just gotta say I don't. And not to mention with the main storyline, talking about different sides you can take and factions and stuff. I never go for the Minutemen, but I really like how they make it, not a black or white situation with the Institute and with the Brotherhood of Steel and with the Railroad and all that. It really does feel like no matter what choice you make, it won't be either right or wrong. It's just, what do you think is best for the direction of the Commonwealth or the world that you're in. And I really like that about Fallout 4. There's no, or any RPG for that matter, there's no clear-cut answer. It's up to you as, how do you feel about the situation? What do you think would be best? For me, the first time I went for the Brother to Steel, and then second playthrough, I revised my opinion of things and I went for the Institute. That's just the way I see it, though. In the end, I think the Institute has some of the better ideas. I don't like the way they execute things all the time, but I think in the end they have the right idea about things, or at least they're the best chance of the Commonwealth's said revival in the future. But of course, since once after you do the last ending stuff, there's no aftermath anyway, so you don't get to see as to what could have potentially happened. So who fucking knows? But yeah, so Fallout 4, really great game. Really happy I played it. Can't wait to see what else Bethesda comes up with. Hopefully the next Elder Scrolls, but that won't be for years to come. So who knows when that's happening? Onward to number 4, Dark Souls 3. So as I said, I beat it earlier this year. And my personal favorite Dark Souls so far, because and it's hard to say, which one was my favorite, because I still technically haven't beaten Dark Souls 1. I've only gotten maybe a third through the game. And I've beaten Dark Souls 2 in its entirety with all the DLC. Dark Souls 3, I've beaten the base game. I haven't gotten to the DLC yet, so I'm still waiting to get there. But the base game alone, I gotta say, has some of the best bosses of any Dark Souls, of all the Dark Souls time I've played so far. Dark Souls 1 has good bosses from what I've played so far. Dark Souls 2 has good to mediocre and some bad bosses. It goes all over the place with Dark Souls 2. But Dark Souls 3, I think, has consistently the best bosses that I've experienced so far in any Dark Souls games to date. So, and the fact that it manages to capture the atmosphere so well, the very dark and desolate world that is Lothric and all that. It's a very dark but darkly beautiful atmosphere, I guess is a good way to put it. I've always loved the atmosphere of that game. It's a very, I like melancholic type things. Beautifully dark is the best way I can probably describe it. I like stuff like that. And the color palette, looks dark, but is very subtly colorful. It's really nice, and I always love that about those games. So yeah, Dark Souls. It's just what else can I say other than I love boss fights in games, and I love how From Software pulls off boss fights. They just do a really good job, I think, most of the time. Not always, but even in Dark Souls 3, they have some fuck ups with some of their bosses. But for the most part, I'm really happy with how the game turned out, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the DLC. So, and now here we are to the best, or what I think is the best games that I've played this year, the top 3. And starting off that top 3 is Cities Skylines at number 3. Now I know what you're thinking. How could a fucking city builder beat out heavily detailed RPGs or combat-based games with intricate mechanics and such? Well, I'll tell you why. Because City Skylines is a game I don't think I could possibly ever get bored with. Fallout 4, I got bored with that after a while. Hotline Miami, I got bored with that after a while. Salt and Sanctuary, I managed to get bored after a while in all these previous games. City Skylines, I've played probably over 200 hours in the game. I haven't gotten bored yet. And I always find a way, to do some more interesting stuff, whether it's trying a different method of building a city, whether it's just, turning on infinite money and, wealth and just go nuts in like a creative mode sort of thing. And just, make some really insane cities with, mods installed with some like insane skyscrapers and shit. And it's just always really fun to see what you can do in City Skylines. And that's why it makes the top 3, because it's a consistent, feeling of refreshment every time I go back, and I don't feel like I've exhausted all the possibilities with that game. And I expect it to last because I still haven't gotten most of the DLCs for it. And, there's still always mod makers making new maps, making new, additions, and textures and stuff that you can add to it, and it always brings about a sense of curiosity for me to see what else can I do with some city or some location, that I can turn into this cool megatropolis with, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people living there. So I think City Skylines rightfully makes number 3, but because it lacks a sense of, other deep and intricate things, even though it's quite deep and intricate in its own genre, it doesn't provide, say, a story or, something like a campaign that, is emotionally evoking. That's why I don't think it can go any higher than number 3. But it's definitely earned number 3, so that's where it'll stay. So at number 2, coming back to the emotionally evoking stuff, is The Wolf Among Us. I played it earlier this year. I was curious about it because I know it's a very highly rated and respected Telltale game. And I absolutely fucking adore Telltale games. They always manage to get my emotions going really hard with their games because they always craft, an already established story in such a way, that really gets you thinking, like, is this the right choice? Did I make the wrong choice? And like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. They always make you question, what's right and wrong with their games, I feel. And The Wolf Among Us, I think, especially, it added a sense of ridiculousness because it involves, fairy tale characters in a modern day setting. Like, I forget where they were, if they were like New York, but, that it's kind of a silly thing like that, but at the same time it's so serious, it's so violent, and it's so, it's a very gory version of all these fairy tale characters. It's all kind of dark. But it's a very, but just like any Telltale game, it got me, it was very emotionally invoking for me, and it was really just quite a blast to play through, and it was always a tense experience, you go through and like, oh shit, what's going to happen next, and a game makes you think that to yourself, at that point, you're like, this is a good game that can keep my attention, and, not falter, especially if it keeps you that way to the end, and it really did for me. So, and I can't wait for The Wolf Among Us 2. I heard that's in the making right now. Really excited, really fucking excited for that. So, and here we are, down to number 1. My personal top game, my favorite game this year that I played. And it's funny because it's the sequel to the game that made number 1 of last year's list. It's Dishonored 2. Last year I said Dishonored 1 was my top game of 2016, and it was. And I talked about how I couldn't wait to play this since this game came out last year. And here we are this year. I played it, Dishonored 2, and I was not disappointed. I was right about my prediction from last year. It was fucking fantastic. Everything about it, the story I felt like was improved. The fact that, you can play between 2 different characters. You can play as Emily Caldwell, you can play as Corvo still. I played as Corvo because, Emily's cool, but, it's fucking Corvo, come on. And just the whole experience, it was just fucking fantastic, Just like the first game, it feels just so great to get back into the world of Dishonored, that very steampunkish and sort of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not the dystopian. That sort of dystopian steampunk sort of universe that I fell in love with Dishonored 1 so much, and it's so fucking great. It's just so fascinating. It's that atmosphere, that sense of character and individuality inside that game, with all the different factions of, like, the religious zealots, that are trying to, snuff out all the followers of the dark, what is it, of the outsider and all that, so, you have their impact in the story and the world. You have the impact of the assassins, the people trying to overthrow the thrones, the throne of Dunwall and all that. You have all these sides and perspectives. And they bring back characters like Sokolov and some other shit. And, once again, they really pull off, well, how, the way you play the game will heavily affect how, the outcome is. And I loved some of the end decisions as well. Some of the end decisions at the end of the game I thought were fucking stunning. I thought I personally thought that the end boss fight was a bit lackluster. I will say that. I thought that it was a good conclusion, and it was a good epic sort of climax to the whole game. But I did feel that it was a bit lackluster in a few ways. I didn't feel that it was I felt like it was kind of a mess, because you were fighting all these different clones, of the same person. And I thought, it was exciting, but it just felt like, oh, we're gonna kind of like a splurge of the main boss. They just throw in a bunch of clones and they just pop up everywhere. It's a big black mess, I thought. So while it was good, I think it could have been improved. Other than that, I have practically no complaints about the game. And not to mention, I had a lot of individual experiences with it in my playthrough that I found to be very, it's just memories, just making memories off of my single-player experience, and it was just really, some things I will never forget. Like, for those who have played will know about the Djinn Locke, which is this door into a mansion that you're trying to get into. Now there's a riddle that goes with this lock. You can either solve it yourself, because you can read the riddle and solve it, or there's alternate ways you can get to open it. I became so obsessed with solving that lock that within about 3 hours I spent trying to solve it, I solved the Djinn lock, because I had practically forgotten about that this was a first-person stealth action assassination game, and I was convinced that I was now playing a puzzle game, and it had me so enthralled. I was like, I need to solve this puzzle, and I just feel really proud of myself for solving it. And even after I did solve it, I still went back and did the optional ways of getting through the door anyway, because why not? To get my all out of the game, and it was a very fun experience. No complaints about Dishonored 2. No question that it's my favorite game of this year. It's so fucking good. And that concludes my top 10 games of 2017. So, yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around for another year of douche to the 10 subscribers that we have. I've been Bryce from Douche Gaming, and I will see you next time. Thank you, and goodbye.